now we've got some threats. And I absolutely love threats. And I love threats when they're about a meaningless bowl game. And I can't wait for some schools to do this. It might be terrible for them long term, but I would love it if they did that. So Florida State, we talked about this, has threatened to boycott the Orange Bowl. And as far as boycotting the Orange Bowl, why would they do so? Because they didn't make the college football playoff. Can a college really do this? Possibly.
What's the ramifications if they do? Bowl bids are nothing but invites. They're privately owned. As you know, they're all individually privately owned. They're nothing but invites. They have contracts with conferences. Does the conference have a bylaw? Does the ACC have a stipulation that you have to agree to go play in the Orange Bowl if you choose to go, if you get the invite?
Well, but what are you... The Orange Bowl is never going to invite you back again because you've left them standing at the altar.
Okay, who cares with the playoff coming next year? It's a 12-team playoff. And this is something I warned about. So here's what I will say. The goal of the boycott would be to have such an impact that you do something. It's an empty threat now because the 12-team playoff is coming next year, Dave. So what? You wouldn't force college football to change anything, right? Because the playoff is coming next year. You know who could have benefited from a boycott? Who should have done it? Auburn in 2004. If Auburn had boycotted the Sugar Bowl when they were undefeated and didn't get a shot to play USC and Oklahoma, we would have had a playoff the next year in college football. But now, with the 12-team playoff coming, this is an empty threat. But this gets to a larger point. The only reason I'm kind of for it is, look, I've thought every way possible to make college football perfect while maintaining traditions. It's not possible. I've written things out to figure out because one of the traditions I like are bowl games. But here's the truth of the matter. College football, a playoff system, and bowl games just can't coexist. They can't. You cannot have bowl games that are not part of the playoff and have them matter. You just can't. And bowl season, it used to be before the playoff. This week is when bowl season starts after the Army-Navy game. It was always, remember those smaller, irrelevant bowls? They were still super exciting, and the stadiums were full, remember? When you would see Georgia State and Villanova, they're not even Division I, but you know what I'm talking about. You would still see full stadiums. But when you create a playoff, by definition, you skew national media coverage to the playoff, don't you?
Yes.
And by skewing national media coverage to the playoff, you naturally render every other bowl game irrelevant. So y'all got to stop with this delusion that you can keep bowl games if you expand the college football playoff. You can't. It's not possible.
I think you can keep them, but don't get super excited about it. If let's say, what would be the best bowl game that's not a part of the college football playoff right now?
This year?
No. Next year with the 12. Next year with the 12.
Okay, so you'll have the orange, sugar, rose, fiesta, peach, cotton will all be part of the playoff because it's going to be kind of rotated to semifinals, quarterfinals.
Okay,
Citrus
so the best
Bowl,
Chick-fil-A.
Holiday Bowl.
So Chick-fil-A for peach. Sorry, you threw me. All right, so what's the best bowl outside of that group?
The Citrus Bowl, the Holiday Bowl, or the Sun Bowl. Those would be the three. Those are like the Citrus Bowl is the best one, but the Holiday and the Sun, as you know, Dave, have they're steeped in history. The Sun Bowl is like one of the oldest ones. It's not a regular bowl game, but yeah, one of the ones Tennessee's going to this year, as you mentioned the Citrus Bowl. So we're talking about no one's going to watch it next year because all the coverage will be on the playoff, and there will be playoff games during the time that bowl games are going on. What do you think is going to eat up all the coverage?
No, true. And so this was brought up, has it ever happened by a mead drinker? It hasn't happened, but it has happened with, there were situations in which a 5-7 team could get in, or a 5-6 team, could get in because they didn't have enough openings. And there have been teams that said, hey, listen, we've been a good college football program. We're not going to go to a bowl game. at 5 and 6 before it expanded to 12. So that has happened. That would be the closest thing, but it's never happened that somebody skipped a bowl game. I don't think it'll ever happen because I already know people that are excited about going to Orlando and making a trip about it. I know that people that go to every bowl game, I don't think they would care if it was the Northern Maine Bowl. They would go to Maine. So I don't think that's ever going to happen, but I would love for it to happen. I would love for Florida State to say, we ain't showing up.
Well, Dave, the reason it wouldn't happen with Tennessee is largely, except for the Fiesta Bowl in '99, but largely Tennessee fans will fill up a stadium. Florida State is like an SEC fan base, don't get me wrong, but I don't think Florida State fans are traveling to Miami for this. You think Florida State fans are going to travel to Miami for this bowl game and get excited for it? No. That stadium will be full. Honestly, Georgia fans may not travel either because they're upset. I just thought about this. This might be the emptiest New Year's Six Bowl you've ever seen. I don't know if Florida State or Georgia fans are willing to travel to Miami for this. They're both disappointed about being there. And
well, I would hope that they would give those tickets to like the Boys and Girls Club or something, but maybe they won't. I don't think you should ever see an empty Orange Bowl, but you start getting a little further down the list. You're probably going to see some empty bowl games. I'll be real frank with you. I have concerns about Tennessee's motivation to play in the Citrus Bowl because of the noise that's around the program right now. Again, we talked about the transfers. I don't have a big issue with those defensive backs cruising on out because they haven't been that effective. But I do have an issue with the feel of the program right now. It feels like you're playing out a quarterback who is going to play in his last game and move on when everybody wants to see Nico. So at what point are they going to announce that it's Milton and not Nico? That's probably going to happen at some point. They're holding these practices over the weekend, but we'll hopefully provide some more insight as the day moves on. But no open periods, no media availability. I think Tennessee is due for a flat bowl game as a team. And I could be darn wrong, and they're hard to predict. And I never made these predictions until I got to the bowl site and was around both teams. But don't you think it's possible that Tennessee could have a flat bowl game? Not only the team, I'm not nearly as worried about the fans, but there's probably some fans that'll say, Miami's fun. By the way, if you go to Florida a lot, Miami's great. It's next to the beach. I love Tampa as well. Orlando, other than Disney World, is absolutely one of the worst places to be. And to some of us that have been to Disney World with kids 18 times, you would say that even makes it worse. So I don't know that people are excited to go to Orlando. I mean, among your Tennessee fans, who do you talk to? Has anybody said, I can't wait to go to the Citrus Bowl? This time last year, everybody was like, you didn't make the college football playoff, but that Orange Bowl in Miami is going to be awesome. Do you feel that way about the Citrus Bowl? Do you get that vibe?
No, but I've unless it's obvious, I've long since given up on predicting who's going to be up or down for a bowl game because now last year it was obvious Clemson is used to being in the college football playoff. They were disappointed to be there, lost their last regular season game, and for Tennessee it was their best bowl appearance in 20 years. So you knew who was going to be up and you knew who wasn't going to be up. But for something like this is a little more speculation. And so it's a lot harder for me to figure out who's going to be up. And just as an example, 2007 day when Tennessee lost to LSU in the SEC title game and went to the Outback Bowl, I was certain they wouldn't be up for that game because of how they lost to LSU. Mm-hmm. And they were really up to play Wisconsin. And Wisconsin was up for that game. That was actually a really hard-hitting, tough game. It was actually a really fun bowl game to watch. I'm sure you were there covering it at the time. And I remember 2001. Well, Tennessee had suffered its worst loss in history to LSU, went and beat the brakes on Michigan in the Citrus Bowl. Now, honestly, I'm not sure Tennessee was up for that Citrus Bowl. I just think they were that much better than Michigan that year. Honestly, I think the talent.
I was thinking that the other day when I referenced that in a column, and I thought that too. I was like, Michigan just seems slow. So who will be more up for this Citrus Bowl? Let me ask you: is it Iowa, Tennessee? Brought to you by Sports Treasures, carrying over 5 million sports treasures and so much more. Follow them on Facebook for the best sports memorabilia. They send out daily updates just go to Facebook and follow them at Sports Treasures TN. Sports Treasures TN. The daily updates are awesome. So who should be more up for this bowl game, Iowa or Tennessee?
Well, this is difficult for me because Iowa did win the Big Ten West. They're 10-3. Nobody expected them to win the Big Ten overall, so they can't be that disappointed about losing to Michigan. But you don't think the aura of staleness at Iowa with Kirk Ferentz has creeped to the players a little bit whenever they play anybody good? Like, they're a bad football team.
Yeah, but I sense they love that guy because he's a player development guy, and they probably showed up and couldn't play, and he's made them into players. I sense he's a very trying to think of maybe an example or a comparison. I can't think of one, but the players usually love player development guys, right? Because they don't cut bait with them and run them off.
So David Cutcliffe.
Yeah. Now that I think about it, because he was told by Ole Miss to fire his coaching staff, most of his coaching staff, and he didn't, and he fell on the sword for his own coaching staff. So yeah, I could see that.
Yeah. Or even to a certain degree, Rick Barnes in basketball too. It's just Rick Barnes grinds you mentally, but I think players respect Rick Barnes. I mean, Kevin Durant won't hear a word against Rick Barnes to this day. So yeah, I think I could see that maybe with Kirk Ferentz. That's highly possible. And they're usually not too bad in bowl games. I will say that. It's again, in terms of the line of scrimmage, Iowa's going to win this. They're a physical team. We'll break down the actual game later. It's hard to know who's going to come out flat. I'll tell you this, though. Long term, these bowl games are going by the wayside. They're not going to be able to get the money they want. Here's what they should have done, Dave. And this is you talked about the Chick-fil-A Bowl the other day. You want to know why the Chick-fil-A Bowl is an elite bowl? You want to know what they did that was so smart?
Well, in my opinion, they were smart about the matchups, but they don't have that power anymore because the SEC tells you which teams to take.
Yes, but they were stuck with bad matchups for a long time because they were down on the totem pole on which teams could go to bowls. You know what they did? They created a preseason game. They created an in-season kickoff game, and they would get the top teams to go play in that. Think about the NIT. The NIT is totally irrelevant now. So what did the NIT do? They said, okay, we'll create a preseason tournament with the top teams, and that's how we'll get our money in basketball. I don't know why I think you might start seeing that in the future. Like Labor Day weekend, the Citrus Bowl or these other bowls will be like, yeah, we're not getting a lot with the end of the year. We're going to do a in-season bowl game, and we'll get like 2 elite teams to play. That would be fun, wouldn't it? I know you hate neutral site games, but like Tennessee going to Orlando to play USC in an in-season Citrus Bowl, that'd be epic.
I think you should do what Metallica is doing right now. I think you should do 2 bowl games in the same city. Let's go ahead and let's see if we can stress the logistics of that town, huh? How many hotel rooms you got?
There you go.
Now, Smoky Mountain Red brings up, I do not see a school giving up free money. Here's the issue, because you receive federal money. You basically got to spend all of your bowl money at the bowl site. So I can remember years where Tennessee lost money on a bowl game. I can remember because they took a lot of people. I can remember one year they made $50,000. It's like, why even report that? And so I don't think it's a money issue, but maybe they do need to pony up the dollars. The other thing that the Chick-fil-A Bowl did is they made it more of an event. And I covered a lot of those. In the beginning, you just show up for like 3 days and you eat a lot of Chick-fil-A sandwiches, and that's great. But by the end, there were a lot of events leading up to the bowls for the players, the teams, and even the media. And there's just a lot of things to do. And that's a big factor. So you want to give your players a reward, but in the end, don't they want money? I mean, who would take a 3 football player extravaganzas and a chicken wing eating contest over $100,000? I wouldn't.
Well, yeah, but Dave, you do know what you just talked about is how bowl games started. I'm going to do on our YouTube thing. I'm going to do a history on how bowl games started, guys. Bowl games started because the Tournament of Roses, which is an annual New Year's parade and celebration in California, in Pasadena, decided we should have a football game with this just for fun. So bowl game started because the football game was part of an overall like 4-day weekend event and fair. Chick-fil-A Bowl realized that, didn't they? And by the way, if you still go to Pasadena, I don't know if you've ever been to the Rose Bowl. I haven't, but I've heard of it. It's still that. It is still a week-long, like, Tournament of Roses parade, fair, carnival, and the football game is just part of it. They get that at the Rose Bowl more than other places do.
I haven't been to the Rose Bowl. I've been to the stadium and covered that Tennessee UCLA game, but I haven't been to an actual Rose Bowl because Tennessee couldn't stop the quarterback draw in the SEC championship game in 2001. Not that I'm still
with the greatest interior defensive line in history, by the way, in college.
I'm not still bitter. I absolutely am not.